June 6th, 1944, 0630 hours. The Normandy coast. The largest amphibious operation in military history is already underway. Roughly 156,000 Allied soldiers are moving toward 5 beaches across a 50-mile front. The naval armada supporting them numbers over 5,000 vessels. Destroyers have closed to within 800 meters of the shoreline to suppress German gun emplacements. Landing craft are grinding through surf choked with steel obstacles, men crouching below ramps that will open in seconds. The German defenses at Omaha Beach are organized, pre-sighted, and manned by experienced infantry. Bunkers with overlapping fields of fire cover every approach angle. The Atlantic Wall has been under construction for years, but the Allied bombardment has been relentless, and the sheer weight of men and material coming ashore is beginning to tell. The Germans are defending. They're holding, but they're not stopping it. Parked on a specially constructed double-track rail network 40 kilometers inland, positioned and leveled over the course of 6 weeks by a crew of 2,500 men, sits Schwerer Gustav, the heaviest rifled artillery piece ever built. 1,350 metric tons of steel, barrel, and mounting carriage. An 80-centimeter bore wide enough for a man to stand fully upright inside. The weapon was originally designed to destroy the Maginot Line's deepest fortifications, reinforced concrete buried 30 meters underground. It fired shells weighing 4,800 kilograms in the high explosive configuration. The armor-piercing variant weighed 7,100 kilograms and was designed to penetrate 7 meters of reinforced concrete before detonating beneath it. At full range, those shells could reach any point on the Normandy beaches from a firing position safely inland of every Allied naval gun. Gustav had already proven itself at Sevastopol in 1942, cracking open fortifications that months of conventional artillery could not touch. It is here now, and the fleet is coming ashore. The weapon itself, this needs to be understood with precision. Gustav's maximum range was 47 kilometers for the high explosive shell with a muzzle velocity of 820 meters per second. The barrel was 32.5 meters long. Each propellant charge had to be assembled from individual components and loaded in sequence. The shell itself required a mechanical crane hoist to seat in the breech. The full loading cycle from fired round to ready state took between 30 and 45 minutes, depending on barrel temperature and crew efficiency. The gun sat on 2 parallel tracks and had no independent traverse capability. Azimuth changes required the carriage to move along a curved section of pre-laid track. Elevation adjustment was the only method of fine-tuning range. This was not a flexible weapon. It could not shift rapidly between targets, but the Normandy beaches were fixed coordinates. The transport lanes were predictable, and the Allied armada was not dispersed across open ocean. It was concentrated, layered, and dense. The Armada. The Allied naval force off Normandy on June 6th was the most concentrated assemblage of shipping ever assembled in one place. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and transports were operating in designated fire support and transport lanes that, at certain sectors, left less than 300 meters between hulls. LSTs and landing craft circled in holding patterns awaiting their wave assignments. Capital ships, including USS Texas, USS Arkansas, HMS Warspite, and HMS Ramillies, were operating between 4 and 12 kilometers from the shoreline, every one of them within Gustav's maximum reach. A single 4,800 kilogram high explosive round detonating in the water alongside a destroyer would not necessarily sink it outright. It would hole the hull, killing men on open deck, destroy surface radar and fire control equipment, and force the vessel out of the naval fire support line at the moment that line was most critical. A direct hit on a loaded transport is a different calculation entirely. The first round fires at 0645. Gustav's crew has pre-calculated coordinates for the primary transport lanes off Omaha. The loading process takes 20 minutes. The shell cranes into the breech, propellant charges seat behind it, the breech locks. The round leaves the barrel at 0645 and travels 38 kilometers in approximately 94 seconds. The trajectory arc is enormous. The shell reaches an altitude of roughly 12 kilometers at the apex. Nothing in the Allied defensive envelope at that hour and altitude is positioned to intercept it. It arrives without audible warning from the gun. The sound of the propellant charge at 40 kilometers is lost in the noise of the naval bombardment. The detonation strikes 40 meters off the port bow of an LCI carrying 200 soldiers of the 1st Infantry Division toward Omaha Beach. The water column rises 60 meters. Overpressure from the detonation alone kills 11 men through blunt trauma. 3 adjacent Higgins boats are swamped or disabled by the displacement wave. The men in the water are in 12 degrees Celsius surf and full combat load. The ones who surface are not fighting anymore. The Allied commanders at sea register the detonation immediately. They do not understand what fired it. Nothing in the German order of battle for Normandy, as Allied intelligence has it assembled, places a weapon of this caliber within range of this position. The second round fires at 0708. The crew has adjusted. An observation team positioned in the bocage farmland south of the beach, equipped with radio contact to the gun, is tracking the fall of shot against the transport lanes and relaying corrections. The second round lands inside a cluster of LCVP boats 150 meters off the beach. 4 boats are destroyed or disabled. The men they carry were assigned to fill a specific gap in the assault line at 0730. That gap does not get filled. At Omaha, where the assault is already fracturing under withering enfilade fire from the bluffs, a missing company strength element at the right moment is not a recoverable deficit. The problem for the Allies is not the firepower exchange happening on the beach itself. The German infantry in their bunkers is still fighting the same fight it was always fighting. What changes is the pipeline. D-Day worked because men and material kept flowing into continuous pressure. The moment the first wave established a foothold, the second was supposed to reinforce it, the third was to follow the second, and that rhythm, that unrelenting accumulation of force, was what the German defense could not absorb indefinitely. Gustav does not need to kill every man in the water, it needs to interrupt the cycle at the right moments. A shell landing in the transport lane forces ships to maneuver. Maneuvering ships miss their assigned wave windows. Wave windows missed men mean arriving late to a beach where the soldiers before them have already exhausted their ammunition and their strength. The Allied response begins assembling within 45 minutes of the second confirmed impact. Fighter bomber assets are being redirected from close tactical support over the beaches toward a search corridor extending 50 kilometers inland along the Bayou rail network. P-47 Thunderbolts and RAF Typhoons begin sweeping the road and rail junctions south of the coast. The problem is that Gustav's position is not immediately confirmed. The weapon fires from concealment beneath camouflage netting. The rail approach runs through forested bocage terrain. The muzzle flash of an 80-centimeter gun is substantial, but at 40 kilometers in the morning haze over a battlefield already lit by hundreds of naval gun discharges, isolating that signature in the first hour is not guaranteed. The aircraft begin a systematic grid search. The gun fires a fourth round at 0808. A fifth at 0851. By now, the transport lane commanders have begun spacing their vessels further apart in varying approach corridors. The concentration thins. Gustav's accuracy against dispersed moving targets at extreme range is marginal. The weapon was designed for fixed fortifications, not maneuvering ships, but the psychological effect on the landing force is not marginal. Every vessel in the Armada knows that a weapon is firing shells at the approximate size and weight of a small automobile into the water around them. The sound of each impact carries 3 kilometers across the water. Men on destroyers assigned to fire support missions are watching the surface around their hulls. The 6th round strikes the stern of an LCT carrying 4 Sherman duplex drive tanks of the 741st Tank Battalion. The tank deck is open. The detonation destroys the 2 rearmost tanks and starts a fire in the ammunition stowage. The LCT does not breach. The tanks do not land. At Omaha, where armored support is already critically degraded from the DD tank losses in the surf earlier that morning, 4 fewer Shermans is not an arithmetic that recovers easily. The infantry assault on the Verville Draw is already stalled. Those tanks were part of the planned fire suppression effort against the WN-72 strong point covering that exit. The aircraft find the gun at 0940. A flight of 6 P-47s locates the rail spur through a break in the cloud cover using the track geometry visible from altitude. The dimensions of Gustav's carriage, even under netting, are unlike anything else on the landscape below. The first attack run drops 500-pound bombs along the track 180 meters south of the gun's current position. The track itself is destroyed. Gustav cannot be repositioned along its azimuth arc. The gun itself is not destroyed. The barrel is intact. The crew is alive and at their stations, but it cannot traverse to engage the primary landing zone without functional curved track beneath the rear carriage. The gun fires one more round at 10:06 from its fixed elevation position. The round lands in open water 2.4 kilometers from the nearest vessel. Fixed elevation adjustment has reached its geometric limit. After that, Gustav is silent. 13 rounds total in approximately 3.5 hours of firing. 6 confirmed direct impacts or near-miss detonations on Allied vessels. 7 rounds that forced significant maneuvering or caused secondary wave damage. The crew begins the process of of assessing whether the track can be repaired under Allied air cover that is now actively hunting the position. The outcome: the Allied landings do not fail. The weight of material and men committed to Operation Overlord is far too large for a single weapon firing once every 30 minutes to halt. Utah Beach secures its objectives broadly on schedule. Gold, Juno, and Sword establish their perimeters through the morning. Omaha holds, but the margin at Omaha is thinner than the historical record shows. The tank deficit is real. The timing disruptions cascade through the second and third wave arrivals. The German 352nd Infantry Division, which in the actual battle was running critically low on ammunition and reserves by midday, faces a more disorganized assault here. The counterattack windows that existed briefly around 1100 on the actual June 6th are slightly wider. Whether the German command structure in Normandy that day, already paralyzed by confusion over Hitler's control of panzer reserves, was positioned to exploit those windows is a separate and much larger question. The engineering requirements for this scenario are worth stating plainly. Positioning Gustav at Normandy would have required 6 weeks of track construction within range of Allied air reconnaissance operating over France throughout the spring of 1944. The 2,500-man crew, the supply trains, the construction activity, all of it would have been visible to photo reconnaissance missions flying the pre-invasion survey routes. Whether the weapon could have survived long enough to fire at all, whether Allied planners would have detected it and incorporated suppression into the pre-dawn bombardment plan is not certain. What is certain is that the gun's moment of maximum effect was the window between 0630 and 0940 on June 6th. After that, the air found it, and a weapon that cannot move has already told you when that window closes.